Hello everyone and welcome to this National Library of Scotland event, our Curator's Choice event, what we hope will be the first in a series of Curator's Choice talks that we will be bringing you this year. My name's Dora Petherbridge and I curate the international collections here at the library, and it is my great pleasure to be here and talk to you all about my selected special item. I've chosen it out of a possible 30 million, actually over 30 million items that are in the National Library's collection. So of all the vastness, I've lighted on this item, which is very special to me and I hope will be of great interest to you. I will talk first, probably about 20 minutes, and then there'll be time for questions and answers at the end. So as you think of your questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A function just at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to them all at the end of my talk. So the item I have chosen today has been particularly hard-working recently. It's been the centre and the focus for about 3 years worth of work, collaborative work. It's been the catalyst for a great deal of research and activity. It's been the touchstone really for a huge programme of different kinds of activities at the library and in collaboration with Bilkent University in Ankara in Turkey. So I feel that there's a lot that's been resting on its shoulders and a lot to celebrate about this item as well, because it's been conserved, transcribed, digitized and scanned, put online, published, and now currently is on public display here at the library in Edinburgh. So I love this item for the discoveries that it has made happen. It's a manuscript from the early 19th century, so a little over 200 years old. And I wish that I could have it here with me to show you just now, but it's behind glass, so I'll show you some images in a moment. It's a travel journal written by Henrietta Liston, who was a woman raised in Scotland, although she was born in Antigua in 1751. Her travel journals, including the journal we're going to talk about today, are all held within the Liston Papers Archive, which is a wonderful, extensive manuscript archive covering the lives of Henrietta and her husband, Robert Liston, who was a Scottish diplomat. There are, alongside Henrietta's travel journals, about 177, exactly 177 volumes of correspondence, and I bought one just to show you so you could get a feel for the scale of the archive. So I hope you can see this all right, but this is a volume of manuscripts relating to their life. It's about 200 folios worth of correspondence, personal papers, financial accounts, invitations that they received, notes, dispatches, all manner of material. So this is just for a few months of their life and their work. So among all of this, we can build an extraordinary picture of Henrietta and Robert and their travels around the world. I will in a moment share my screen with you. Let me just get that sorted now. Here we go. Sorry for the wee delay. So, Henrietta Liston's travel journals sit within this beautiful archive, a beautiful archive of material. And the particular travel journal I have chosen takes us straight into the Turkish chapter of her life. So 1812 to 1814, this journal covers. And as you can see on the screen here, Henrietta said of it, "If I live to come home, you shall see this and everything else that has been new to me in a kind of journal I sometimes write." So I think this is a very interesting sentence. It tells us quite a lot, even though it's quite light in tone, characteristically light in tone. It's a kind of journal. It's quite a modest way of talking about her writing. It is, in fact, a a really substantial piece of travel writing. It's not a daily diary, but it is full of regular entries over the course of the 2 years. This phrase, this sentence also gives us an idea of the dangers Henrietta felt that she might have faced while she was writing it. So she is traveling. She's traveling during the Napoleonic Wars as an older woman, which I'll come to in a moment. She's conscious that she may not make it back to Scotland. And she's also indicating that she's going to share this journal with her friends and family. Just before we can delve in, we've done a lot of thinking, my colleagues and I, about whether or not Henrietta intended this journal for publication, how widely it was circulated among her circle. And she says kind of different things that lead us into different directions and different interpretations of how widely it would have been shared. Certainly, she did want to share it and read it with her friends and to share her stories. But she also said in another letter that she would never let her journal out of her own hands. So it's precious and private, and something that's extremely close to her heart. Not only did Henrietta write about the Ottoman Empire, which is what this journal focuses on, but about everywhere that she travelled. But I think this journal, and this is one of the reasons why I've chosen it, is her most significant piece of travel writing. The journal is unlike her others. It's personalised. For a start, you can see this is a photograph of the front board here, and tooled in gold across the calfskin is Liston's travels. This is the only journal that she wrote in a bound volume that has a title like this, that has been kind of designed in this way. So it does stand out for many reasons from her other travel writing, particularly her earlier travel writing. Let me just show you another few photographs of it so you can get a real sense of the item. It's been through the wars. It's been through some journeys. It's been on warships and boats and carts and carriages, and finally has been sitting downstairs in the stacks here at the National Library since 1936 when we acquired it. And so there it is, and I just would love to show you a picture of it on display just now. So here is an opening, and that's in our exhibition gallery, so you can just see the loveliness of her handwriting, the density of the way that she uses the pages. And here is Henrietta next to her writing. This painting of her is dates from 1800. It was a painting that she had done, that she commissioned in the United States while she was there with her husband, Robert Liston. And in this picture, she's kind of in her late 40s, so a bit younger than she was when she wrote the travel journal we're looking at today, and a bit younger than she was when she travelled to Turkey. This is Henrietta not actually that long after her marriage to Robert. She married Robert quite late in her life. She was 44 years old. And until then, she had lived in Glasgow with her guardian, her uncle, and her life was, comparatively speaking, quite secluded. A private life, not a public life. And when she married Robert, the diplomat, suddenly all of that changed, and she embarked on travel and travel writing, and was thrown into a much broader international circle of diplomats and politicians and monarchs and different cultures. I particularly love Henrietta's handwriting, and it's become so familiar to me. So I just wanted to give you a little flavour of what it looked like. And here's a shot from above, so you can see how perhaps she's edited, how she's inserted phrases above where she's missed words out, how she underlines things. And here's perhaps a closer up image. It gives you a real feel of immediacy, and of course most manuscripts do that, but journals have that intimate, private specialness, and this one certainly does. And just one more close-up before we move on to the context of the journal. I'm not sure whether you can see or whether my face is blocking this, but this says, she's talking about a ball of snow which she's been given, and you get a real just a sense of her careful cursive handwriting. The little smudges add such a kind of immediacy again. So the journal has been through an awful lot of processes to get us to the point where we can fully share it with you and research it. This is a photograph of it in our conservation workshop downstairs, being conserved and prepared for digitization. So it could be scanned safely and then put online. Now, to get into the meat of the journal, Henrietta and Robert were called out of retirement in 1812 to go to the Ottoman Empire as the British diplomats. Robert was a British ambassador to the Sublime Porte in Constantinople, which is Istanbul. They took a long Mediterranean journey, about 6 weeks, against the backdrop of the Napoleonic Wars, and arrived in Istanbul in the height of summer after this extraordinary Mediterranean journey, which was full of stops. They stopped in Spain and Malta and Sicily and sailed through the Aegean Islands. And along the way, Henrietta records everything about this beautiful journey, this challenging journey, a journey which made her seasick and fed up and delighted and curious. And here's just one of the observations that she makes. As you can see, I was much pleased, she says, with Spanish dancing, particularly the national dance of the fandango. And that's just one out of many gems that I could have chosen to share with you about all the countries that she visits on her way to Turkey. But Turkey is the main focus of her travel writing and of this journal. And after their Mediterranean voyage finishes, the rest of the journal is all about her life in Constantinople, the events that happened to her there, and her travels around the region. So the moment that the Listons arrive in Constantinople, this famous city, this city laden with history, which she knows, great anticipation, a really important gig for them both. It was the climax of their diplomatic career, definitely the climax of Robert's career as a diplomat, and he was 70, almost 70 at the time he took up this post, and Henrietta was 60. So they were mature in years. They were the eldest of all the diplomats, all the European diplomats at Constantinople. And they had a really important role in maintaining a good relationship between Britain and Turkey, between Britain and the Ottoman Empire, which was very powerful and wealthy and had a huge importance for trade, was very important in all the shifting power relationships in Europe at the time. And one of the things that strikes Henrietta, of course, as it did many travellers from her time and since, is the way that Constantinople looks. And the image on your screen just now is the view of Constantinople by the Italian artist, Luigi Meyer. And this print was made in 1812, which is the very year that the Listons arrived in Constantinople. And I'm not sure, she would have seen this view at some point. It may not be the exact angle of her first view of the city. She was sailing up the Bosphorus, but it gives you an impression. But I wanted to add to this impression a few of her words about the city from her journal as they first see this place. So she writes, "As we advanced, Constantinople itself opened to us, regularly ascending a range of high grounds or hills with a number of fine mosques and elegant minarets overtopping the tall cypresses with which they are delightfully mixed. She goes on to say, perhaps there is not in the world such a tract of water presenting a scene so gay, beautiful, and interesting as this channel. It is from 1 to 2 miles broad, and so formed as to appear almost to its end a succession of fine lakes. The European and the Asiatic side are equally ornamented by a variety of fairy palaces of the sultans, gardens and arbours, formed by the spreading branches of magnificent trees. So that's just a sense of the way that the city has inspired her to write, of her trying to record and capture the beauty that she sees. So the Listons live in Constantinople for almost 8 years. They travel around a little, they have a period of leave, but for the most part, they are based at the British Embassy Palace in Pera on the European side of the city. And you can just see, I hope, at the top of your screen, Angleterre marked on the map, which gives you an idea of where the British Embassy was. And they were surrounded by all of their diplomatic brethren, which was a phrase that Henrietta used. Germany and Holland, Spain, France, Venice, Naples, Sweden, and Russia. I hope you can see just next to Naples and Sweden there. In this diplomatic enclave, their family of diplomats, which really did define a lot of Henrietta's experiences of the place, and gives you an impression, I think, of the importance of diplomacy, the intensity of diplomacy in Ottoman Istanbul during this period. I know we haven't got an awful lot of time, so I'm going to carry on and tell you about one of the most interesting aspects, I think, of Henrietta's writing across all of her travel journals, but particularly in this Turkish travel journal. Henrietta was always interested in people. She was interested in landscape and international relations and politics, but in people particularly, and women most especially. When she went to the United States in 1796, she made a special point of trying to define the characters of the women. And I'm just going to read a very short extract from her American journal, which I think is a good contrast to her experiences in Turkey. And of course, in America, everybody is speaking English. In Turkey, Henrietta has to communicate, whether it's with Turkish women or Robert Liston's colleagues, their interpreters, the other inhabitants of the city, through the means of dragomen, interpreters and translators. In America, it's different. So this is one very different aspect of her life in these countries. Anyway, in Philadelphia, she says, every lady is handed from the drawing room to the dining room, but should she, in the course of the day, have reason to walk across the room, a gentleman immediately offers his hand. In short, no woman moves in company without support. So in Turkey, she has to have specially agreed access to the women's domestic spaces in elite Ottoman homes, and a kind of ceremony accompanies her visits. There's a diplomatic import to them. She's very much the wife of the British ambassador, just as the Turkish women are the wives of significant players in Ottoman Istanbul and in the Ottoman government as well. The image on your screen, just before I go on, is a beautiful illustration from this Court and Fashionable magazine, slightly later than Henrietta was there, but gives you a good impression of the Turkish dress, which so fascinated Henrietta. So while in America she feels the women are a little distant from her, a little remote, obviously a little managed perhaps in the way that they are moving across rooms, but in Turkey she notes the women's kindness, the way that they help her with the unusual for her customs of eating and sitting and being in a space, their relaxedness is something that she remarks upon. The more time that she spends with the women, the more they become accustomed to her, she says, the more that the children in the room romp around her. And I think the livelier her socializing gets. So I will read you one more extract that touches on dress. And dress was mutually fascinating. The Turkish women were interested in what Henrietta was wearing, and Henrietta was interested in what the Turkish women were wearing. And in fact, Henrietta predicts that there would be this exchange, this kind of intercultural moment where they both sets of women admire each other's clothing. So she chose to wear a very particular dress that she thought would interest and astonish the women. It had a particular embroidery, and this is noted in her journal. But this is what she says of the clothing of the Turkish women she meets on one particular occasion. And I've chosen this illustration because it mirrors what Henrietta describes. So the lady of the house comes to meet Henrietta, and she was superbly dressed. Her drawers, which are the petticoats of Turkish women, and may as well be so as they are, though a little divided in the middle, made to reach the feet and are not drawn at the bottom. They are of embroidered muslin. Her top was of a beautiful cream-coloured stuff with large spots of gold and handsomely scalloped with gold lace. This is, I think, the handsomest part of the dress. It is open at the bosom, as you can see, meeting tight below the breasts, and displays a fine gauze shift, supplying the place of a handkerchief, and the skirt is loosely wrapped over, occasionally opening to show the drawers. The sleeves of the shift come out full about the arm, resembling the old-fashioned court ruffles, which you can see here. So that's just another quick flavour of the way that Henrietta is recording and describing, often in great detail, everything that she sees. And if you're interested to read more of her experiences with Turkish women, of her experiences eating Turkish food and Turkish breakfasts, and her experience of this city, which is full of incident. There are fires while she's there. There are assassinations. There is a plague outbreak. She's actually in a form of lockdown at the British Embassy for the beginning part of her stay, which is something that we can all relate to at the moment. And if you would like to read more about that, then I will direct you at the end of the talk to the fully digitized journal online and to our publication, which is here. As part of the programme of work, we, my colleagues and I, Dr. Patrick Hart and Dr. Valerie Kennedy, edited Henrietta's journal and published it with Edinburgh University Press last year. And what we wanted to do was to create a very readable edited version of this substantial text and give you access to the full digitized manuscripts online through the National Library's digital gallery, which is what we have done. So you compare Henrietta's writing with our slightly modernized version. And just to say that you can buy the paperback at the National Library shop. And you can see the digitized manuscript online at the Digital Gallery in our dedicated online resource, which gives you not only Henrietta's Turkish travels between 1812 and 1820 and this very special Turkish journal, but Henrietta's North American travels as well, her earlier travels. And I think they form a wonderful connection of material to compare the very new Republic of the United States and the very young Republic of the United States and this much older, laden, historically kind of deep Ottoman Empire and Turkey, which she lived in for almost 8 years. And they are all there online alongside a series of commissioned essays which give you different insights into her writing. If you are in Edinburgh or in Scotland between now and the 6th of November, please come to our free display, which shows this journal that I've handed us through, alongside a wonderful selection of other material from volumes such as this, Ottoman documents, letters in Arabic and Persian, wonderful Ottoman travelling firmans, decrees that the Listons obtained, and a range of maps and other travellers' accounts to give you the full spectrum of Henrietta's life. And you can just see here the resource, the National Library website address for the resource, and our Twitter account, through which we share lots of little snippets of Henrietta's journal. Before we have to stop and move on to questions, I would like to read you one more extract. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just now to do that. So this last extract is from the time Henrietta visits a Turkish bath, women's bath, for the very first time. And she was a curious traveller. She's a relatively unafraid person, quite straightforward, I think, in her manners, decisive in the way that she writes. She likes to investigate what's happening. She wants to know things, and she wants to know how she fits in these new countries that she visits, and especially in this different culture that Turkey offers her. And when she goes into the baths, she brings with her her biases and her preconceptions and the orientalizing exotic images that she might have seen, the artistic manifestations that were circulating at the time in Europe of Turkish women, particularly of Ottoman life. But she has her own unique personal experience, and that, I think, is the richness of the journal, as we get to see this world through her unique eyes as a 60-year-old woman from Glasgow turning up in the early part of the 19th century, just before a great period of change in the Ottoman Empire. And she really takes us with her to all of those places and to all of and through all of those experiences. So she manages to gain admission to the baths. She pays with a piece of gold. The men wait outside, and she says, "I found the bathers strolling, sitting and lolling in every corner, in buff, or in the buff. The second apartment contained in the centre a large marble bath. There were about half a dozen females. Some were in it, others reclined on its edge, and a painter might with great effect have taken their different attitudes, while the light was beautifully thrown in from the roof. One very lovely woman sat busily employed in dyeing the hair of a young girl. This operation is always performed in the bath, while another lay reclined in the act of bathing a beautiful infant. The scene was strange, but it was picturesque and fine." And that's a very Henrietta phrase to end on for the moment, this combination of strangeness and picturesqueness, the difference and the beauty that she finds in Ottoman Turkey.